All right, great. So thank you for joining us here today. We are excited to present why wouldn't you want double-digit response rates, how to combine direct mail with email and effective workflows. We will be today presenting with our friend Nancy Harhut. When we thought about this webinar, we were really responding to a lot of the questions that we've been getting. Postalytics launched recently, and we've been talking to hundreds of different companies, and this idea of combining direct mail and email together to accomplish some common marketing tactics coming up. And so we sought out an expert. We've known Nancy for years. She's been living and breathing and eating this stuff for a long time. And so we're excited to have Nancy with us. So Nancy, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Hey, hello everyone. Hi Dennis. Thank you very much. This is Nancy Harhut. I'm a creative director and a consultant, and I'm pretty steeped in marketing, direct marketing, whether it's direct mail or email or digital or DRTV or print, but anything to get that one-to-one response. And the thing that might make me a little different and that might make me a little bit more interesting to the listeners today is I really focus on combining direct marketing best practices with what social scientists have found about how people make decisions. Because at the end of the day, if we're in marketing, we want people to make decisions. We want them to try and buy again. We want them to download and like and share and offer up some data, whatever it is, we want to get that response. And social scientists have found that people have certain hardwired decision defaults, I should say, that they use. They're decision-making shortcuts. And if we as marketers know about them and bake them into our strategies and into our creative, it increases the likelihood we get the response that we're looking for. So in a nutshell, that's what I bring to the table.
Great. So today in our agenda, we're going to first talk about why we would want to use direct mail and email workflows. And as I mentioned, this is a big topic conversation. A lot of marketers have been using email for a long time. Some have been using direct mail. They've typically lived in different silos. And what we're talking about now is bringing them together to solve some important lead gen and other goals. We're going to focus on 3 proven direct mail email workflows today, and we've got a bunch more for you later on. So we're going to hit a lead generation workflow called Skim the Cream, a new lead nurture stream workflow, and then an event-based workflow we're calling Prime the Pump. And so after we review them, we're going to give you a link. You can download all of them, plus 3 others, and a series of direct mail and email best practices and tips that Nancy and we at Postalytics have put together for you. So we hope that you enjoy this, and we're thankful and excited to present this to you today. So first, Nancy, why don't we talk a little bit about why we want to use direct mail and email together?
Sure. I mean, that's a great question, and it's certainly one that maybe some marketers have if they're dyed-in-the-wool emailers or dyed-in-the-wool direct mailers, and they've gotten good results from those individual channels, and it's like, well, why do I want to combine them? But the answer is you should test combining them because study after study after study, in market studies these are, show that the combination actually generates better results. So IWCO ran a study, and they found that using the 2 channels together can get you a 35% lift in terms of response, which is, that's pretty hefty, And not too long ago, the Canada Post ran a study, and they found that if you send direct mail after email, you can get a 40% lift. But what's interesting is this year, the USPS ran a study, and their study found that the order wasn't as important as the fact that you're using multi-channel. So while Canada Post was saying, direct mail after email, the USPS this year ran a study, United States Postal Office, and they found that, you can vary the order. You can do direct mail email or email direct mail, but the important thing is having that multi-channel element. And then the Direct Marketing Association has found that as direct mail volume has dropped, and it has fallen off some, response rates have risen. It's getting a piece of direct mail is a little bit more unusual. It's it's not it's not like you walk to your mailbox and there's it's stuffed with solicitations. You spend a little bit more time with mail now, and as a result, response rates have gone up. So why would you want to put direct mail into your email stream? Well, you're going to get better results. You're going to see that uptick in response, and it's certainly something that's testable and something that's working for a lot of other marketers.
That's great. That's great. And the other thing, and this is something that we've talked to marketers a lot about over the last few months, is it's really hard to stand out if you're just using email. There's been an explosion of digital marketing efforts. The great folks at HubSpot have really put out a tremendous playbook around inbound marketing. And so everybody and their brother is out there generating content, driving folks to landing pages using email, battling over keywords for both social media ads, pay-per-click ads, SEO. And because everybody's doing the same thing, all that marketing kind of blends together in the minds of your prospects. And so if you're just using email, it's really hard to stand out. As a matter of fact, the average business user gets 95 emails per day. And so I don't know about you guys, but I have a very hard time getting through my mailbox every day, my inbox. It's a constant pressure. I feel like I might be missing an important message mixed in with everything else. And so, frankly, I think a lot of us experience this where we just do mass deletes on emails that maybe could be helpful, but we just don't have time to deal with it all. And so it's very hard for marketers to stand out if you're just using that email. And then to Nancy's point earlier, only half of B2B marketers are actually using any direct mail. And so the mailbox is less crowded, the inbox is more crowded. And so it makes sense to try to take advantage of that dichotomy. And so, Nancy, what are some of the ways that direct mail, when you add it to a campaign, what does it give you?
Sure, Dennis. That's it's a terrific question, and there are a few different answers to it. But one thing is, when you think about it, direct mail is physical. So you can touch it, you can hold it, you can see it. To your point about getting all of those emails, a lot of times, email drops below the fold. It drops further down the inbox, and you just don't see it. And even if you meant to respond, even if you thought you might be interested, out of sight, out of mind. Especially if you're looking on a mobile phone. Whereas with direct mail, it doesn't just disappear. You hold it in your hand. It's tangible. It's physical, and there are. And it sticks around. You have to physically, remove it in order to get rid of it. So the U.S. Postal Service and Temple University teamed up, and they did a study, and they found that when it comes to direct mail versus email, people actually spend more time with direct mail, with physical ads. They also found that people have a stronger emotional response to physical ads and that they remember them better. It was interesting. They tested, I think, postcards against email in particular, and they found that people spent more time with the physical mail. They had more of an emotional reaction. They had better recall, and the mail actually did a better job of building desire for the product. So there are a lot of advantages to having that physical mail. It's tangible. It's top of mind, and they've done a lot of neuromarketing testing that indicates that people are just having a stronger response to it, and it's teeing them up to buy. And then if you're a digital marketer, and these days who isn't, direct mail actually now offers a very easy bridge to digital landing pages. You can use personalized URLs, you can use QR codes. I mean, there are many different ways that you can start to link the online and the offline to have a nice integrated campaign.
Great. And so, the final thing we'll talk about here before we get started is, why now? What has changed? As you talked about, mail volumes have fallen. We all know this from our own personal experiences. And so there's less mail being sent. And so therefore, there's a greater opportunity to stand out when you do use mail. The other thing is that, when our mailboxes used to be super crowded, we came up with a term called junk mail. And, junk mail is really something that is an old-fashioned spray and pray kind of tactic. And it's used much, much less today because we can spray and pray all we want with email for nothing. And so, you don't really need to use mail to do some kind of mindless sending of non-targeted, non-personalized mail. The technologies that printers use now can produce 100% customized, 100% personalized pieces of mail. We've got great data, and so now we can generate much higher quality mail advertising. And of course, there's been some new breakthroughs in direct mail automation technology. And so tools like Postalytics are there to really collapse the production process from days and weeks to minutes. And so rather than, having these huge batch processes that you plan out for the year and you spend 6 weeks building toward, you can bang out a campaign in just a few clicks of a mouse, just like doing an email campaign. We're able to measure the delivery and the response each piece of mail that you get. And so you have a better understanding of your ROI. And then finally, we can connect it all into your CRM and marketing automation workflows. So the direct mail really is just another digital channel. It's being generated digitally. It's being printed using digital technology. And then it just happens to get dropped in the mail at the end. So with that in mind, let's talk about our first workflow. We're calling it Skim the Cream lead generation. And so the idea here is you've got a list, you've bought it perhaps, or it's something that your sales reps came up with, or someone in your lead gen group came up with a new list of targets. They haven't heard from you before. So Nancy, let's talk about what we want to do here.
Absolutely. So in this particular case, we're going to talk about it as if it's a 6-week campaign. And, the truth of the matter is, and I think all of our listeners will agree, converting prospects into leads can be very challenging. There are a number of different factors that influence the success, and that includes the quality of the prospect, the competitive environment, the fit of your particular solution, as well as the timeliness of your campaign. And so one of the smartest ways to try to skim the cream, if you will, is to start with some email. And I think we can maybe even advance to the next slide and take a look at the flow here. We'd start with some email to kind of skim the cream, get the people who are most likely to respond right away. And there will be a percentage that will. And then once you do that, you start to introduce some direct mail against the target that needs a little bit more work to unlock. And what you want to do is, add in that direct mail to kind of quickly convert the holdouts on your list. So if you look at it this way over a 6-week campaign, what you want to do is you start in that first week with 1 to 3 emails, and there are a lot of statistics out there that indicate that 2 emails are better than 1, and 3 emails are better than 2. I think the latest stats I saw get you I think a 31% lift if you use 2 emails and a 56% lift if you use 3 emails. So if you can, if your product or service is right, so that you can concentrate that number in the first week, that's good. But basically, you want to flag the target's presumed need or their pain point. And you want to introduce your company or your product or your service as the answer. You might even want to put an offer in there at some point. And then in week 2, introduce that postcard or that letter package. You've skimmed the cream in the first week. You've grabbed anyone who was, had pent up desire and was most likely to respond. You grabbed them right away. Now you want to hit them, in another channel, kind of shake things up, surprise them. Again, deliver your message, and always start with the prospect in mind. It's about their needs, their pain point, their goals, and then how your company solves that. Don't lead with your company. Lead with your prospect and how you're the solution. Then in week 3, another series of emails, recap your message, remind them what you told them, and maybe introduce some additional support points so that you've got some new information that you're adding in there. Week 4, a great opportunity to introduce some social proof. Again, you're trying to convert leads, so let people know that people like them have had success with your product. That's the beauty of social proof. When people aren't certain of what to do, they look to others, particularly others like themselves, and they follow their lead. So you have some names that you're trying to turn into customers. Let those names know that people like them found success with your product. People like them found your product to be helpful. So, some case studies, some use cases, some testimonials, add those in. Now at week 5, maybe it's time for another hit in the mail. We're kind of varying this approach. So we're email, direct mail. So maybe an email. And at this point, maybe we're going to add some urgency. We're going to say it's a last chance postcard, and maybe we've upped the offer there, and we've put an expiration date on it, perhaps. But really let people know, like, this is it. Maybe they need to respond this week. And then after that, maybe kind of clean up with a email that just further underscores the need to act. Again, maybe hits that more attractive offer. But this provides, I think, a tested and proven approach to try to convert those leads to customers using both of the channels in a very strategic way.
Excellent. That's great. And so, by using these together, you can, and you continually message over time, your messaging will sink in, and you have a much better chance in converting some of these cold leads into warm leads. And so speaking of which, our next workflow is focused on those warm leads. How are we going to get these folks that have expressed some level of interest, but not really ready to engage with a sales rep yet or in a sales process? What are we going to do with them? And so, Nancy, why don't we talk about that?
Sure. That's I think, Dennis, a situation that a lot of us find ourselves in. It's like, all right, we're getting some forward motion, some promise, but we haven't quite, nailed it yet. And we want to make sure that we keep those leads nurtured and keep moving them along the sales continuum. Because when you think about it, warm leads are precious. I mean, we've gotten something from them, and we want to hang on to them. So they deserve special treatment on their journey to becoming customers. So what you want to do is you want to communicate with them in a way that makes them feel valued, and also that highlights your value to them. And I think that the approach here is you want to make a good first impression, with an immediate email to acknowledge them, and follow up with a more formal letter. And the goal is to always to be present, to be top of mind, because the problem is sometimes we don't know when someone's going to be ready to buy. And so we just want to be there so that we're always top of mind and not be overbearing. So if we look at this as a typical 8-week stream here, we could start with an email that immediately acknowledges that they're a new lead, they've taken some qualifying action that's moved them up into this stream, and so we want to acknowledge that and let them know that some helpful information is also on its way to them via the mail. So we kind of use the email to tease direct mail piece to tell people, hey, keep your eyes open for this. It'll be popping up soon. And then in week 2, we've got that letter package that introduces all the benefits of doing business with your company. Again, as with a focus on customer benefits. It's all about what someone is going to get out of doing business with you. Then at week 3, we could perhaps send another email, and this one would attempt to further qualify how you might be able to help the target, how you could help this lead. Perhaps you drive them to a survey or a poll on a landing page, but just get a little bit of information about them that will help you customize your additional communications. And also it gets that engagement. There's something known as the consistency principle. And if you can get that first small yes from somebody, they're much more likely to give you a second yes, a third yes, a fourth yes. And what you do is you start to increase your ask. So maybe your first ask is just, take a quick survey or a quick poll, and that predisposes them to say yes when your next ask comes along, which might be a little bit larger. Maybe you can ask them to watch a webinar or just, talk to a salesperson. But if you make that ask and someone does answer it, they visit the page, that should also trigger a thank you email. And then in week 4, maybe we introduce direct mail again, perhaps a postcard that just recaps the benefits of doing business with you. It's quick, it's easy, you skim it, you scan it, but it delivers the message. Week 5, maybe it's a good time at this point to have an email featuring some customer testimonials, maybe a link to a relevant case study or to a video, to a product demo, but have that additional bit of information in there. At week 6, it might be time for a 1-2 punch, some email and direct mail working in tandem, designed to prompt engagement. They're getting both in the same week, and one or the other should get their attention and get them going. A lot of times you see one and you mean to do something, you just don't get around to it, and then the next one reminds you. At week 7, what you might want to consider is a follow-up email to remind the non-responders of your special offer, and then a thank you email for people who took advantage of the offer. So you put that offer out there. If people did something, if they downloaded a white paper or watched a video, whatever it was, thank them. And if people didn't, remind them, hey, we've still got the offer out there. And then at week 8, maybe introduce some relevant news. Maybe there's something about your product or service that's changed or been enhanced or been upgraded. Or maybe you just want to send an email with some topical commentary that the prospect might find useful, But the idea is to just have a steady presence and a value add presence. And obviously, on all of these streams, once somebody's ready to engage, you pull them out of this flow and move them into another one. And in this one, we've set it up for 8 weeks. Depending on your product or service, you can compress that, or you can run it even longer. You're really looking for what the ROI is, and the other thing you can do at the end of this 8 weeks is you can drive people to a preference center where they can indicate how often they want to be communicated with, how they want to be communicated with, which topics they want to hear about, but anything to make that nurture stream a little bit more personalized and a little bit more relevant to them.
Excellent. That's great. And so moving on to our next workflow, we're calling Prime the Pump for Events. It's been interesting and something we hadn't really anticipated prior to launch of Postalytics. It's apparent that event-based marketing is a massive part of everybody's focus. Again, it doesn't get the kind of headlines that a lot of the newer digital stuff gets, but it's very consistent. And using email alone, we've been hearing from folks, is not an optimal strategy for reaching event audiences. And so that's really we wanted to focus on this. So imagine you're going to a conference or trade show, and you need to reach out and talk to folks. So Nancy, take it from here.
Sure. And well, it's funny. I think events are popping up consistently as one of the top 3 ways that content is being used to generate business. There's really no substitute for that face-to-face communication. So if you've got the opportunity where you're participating in a conference or some kind of an event, you want to capitalize on that. And so registrants for that event, or even invitees for the event, can be especially well qualified prospects for you. And so what that means is you want to communicate with them early and often. And the idea here, Dennis, is expose them to your brand, get them familiar with it, and then prime them to connect with you at the event. But as you say, one snag is you may not have ready access to their email addresses. So what you might want to do is send a direct mail piece to drive someone to a landing page. At that landing page, you can capture their email and some other important information, although, the tendency here is to say, all right, we're going to ask for everything, and, this will have all of this information. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of times we don't even use it. So what you really want to do is ask for the email and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 at most other bits of information that you're really going to be able to use to help customize, your communications going forward. But research shows that each additional field that you ask someone to fill out actually gets you a lower response. It causes people to drop out. So at this critical point in the flow, don't ask much. Capture that email address, and then once you do that, you can literally have a nice 6-week campaign that basically works 1 month prior to the event, and then has a couple of weeks of follow-up after the event. And of course, at that point, you might continue even beyond those 2 weeks. But if we go to the next slide, we can take a look at what this flow might actually break out to be. So we start with that direct mail piece. Maybe it's a letter with some high-level information about your company, and you're going to focus it on why the person will want to see you at the event. Okay, that's the goal. Why do they want to see you? And maybe include a link to a landing page to capture a few details about them, but definitely include the link to the landing page that captures that email. You might even consider incenting them to visit the landing page. And of course, if they do visit and they provide that email, that should immediately trigger the thank you. They've provided the email address, so acknowledge it and thank them. Then in week 2, what you might want to do is get a postcard out that reminds the non-responders that they should visit the landing page. Maybe, week 1 is a letter package. It's a little bit more robust. Maybe week 2 is just a quick reminder because it was something they meant to do and just, didn't quite get to it. It's still on their to-do list, and getting that postcard reminds them. Week 3, how about sending out an email recapping why people should see you, whether they should visit your booth or whether they should attend your session if you're speaking, or whether they should set up an appointment to meet with you at the event or get a product demo, whatever your goal is. You want to, get that information out there and always provide the reason why. Sometimes we think it's apparent, like we're just going to tell them that we're there, we're going to have, our product there, or we're there, we're going to be doing a presentation, and it's just, well, of course they know why they should attend, but providing the reason why someone should do something actually increases the likelihood that they will. So send out that email, recap why people should visit you or attend your session or meet with you. Now, week 4 is probably the week that the event is going to be happening. So, maybe send out a postcard that the recipient can actually bring to the event because it's got some helpful information. What I found works very well is maybe you give, the top 3 restaurants in the area, or maybe it's a little diagram of the showroom plan or the show floor plan, or maybe it's the top 10 things to do and see in the area where the event is, but the kind of thing that someone will want to throw in their briefcase or in their overnight bag and bring with them so they can hang on to it and refer to it. And then perhaps the day of, and as well as even the day before the event, great times to send those reminder postcards, hey, we're going to be there. Don't forget, schedule an appointment or come by the booth. Here's our booth number, or here's the session where we're speaking. And then once the event has happened, if you've managed to connect with people, week 5, the first week after the event, send out a piece of mail thanking them. It was, say, hey, it was great to see you. It was fabulous to connect with you, and maybe start to build that relationship or further that relationship. And if there are people that you didn't get to connect with, send them an email anyway. We didn't manage to see you, but that doesn't mean that we still don't have the opportunity to connect. So, send a piece of mail to the people that you did actually meet with. Send an email to the people that you'd hoped to but didn't quite get to. Maybe in week 6, send out an email that recaps the key points from the event. Maybe make a special event offer or discount. Anyone who attended the conference, is entitled to X, or, is entitled to this discount. But it's a nice way, a nice 6-week integrated campaign that nicely packages your communications around a particular event. And if you want to start a little bit before, certainly you can, but the idea is, you want to keep providing exposure to your company, your product, your service, so that you're building familiarity and anticipation. And, if you want to start a little bit earlier than 4 weeks out, you can, but then heavy up your contacts the closer to the event. But I think it's a proven approach to engaging with these very, you could argue, well-qualified people for your product or service.
That's great, Nancy. And we actually had a question submitted prior to the webinar about syncing up the content. So we'll get to that in the Q&A here at the end.
Great.
And so, as I mentioned, as we wrap up here, we're going to give you a link where you can download everything that Nancy discussed, as well as 3 other complete workflows. The top of mind, the onboarding, and the cold lead touch workflows, as well as some really good tips and best practices that Nancy and we have put together for you. So before we do that, though, just another quick word about Postalytics. As you know, we launched just a couple of months ago. We had some fabulous response from marketers in a whole bunch of different industries, different sizes of companies, and this idea that you can stand out and grow your pipeline by sending automated postcards and letters really seems to be resonating out there, and people are recognizing that dichotomy between the crowded inbox, the uncrowded mailbox, and now the technology is there to make it happen in a much easier way than things have been done in the past. The other thing is really that you're able to know your ROI with this type of direct mail. traditional direct mail has worked. And, those DMA stats that you saw where response rates are rising, that's all traditional direct mail that is targeted and personalized. But it's very, very hard to measure exactly who has responded to what. It's like that old advertising adage, 50% of my marketing is working, I just don't know which 50%. And that really applies to traditional direct mail. But with Postalytics, you'll know exactly who has responded. You'll know exactly who's received your mail. And so that's a big difference. And then finally, by syncing up the delivery and response stats with your CRM or your marketing automation, you're able to trigger automated workflows without having to do any extra work. And so direct mail can become a part of these automated flows. And once the campaigns are set up, they just run. And so, again, it's a big leverage on time, big leverage on measurability. And by pulling everything back into that core CRM or marketing automation system, you have a much better chance of success. And so that wraps up our review of the workflows for today. As I mentioned, we've got a link for you. We'll send this out to everybody on email shortly after the call here today, so you don't have to necessarily write it down. Obviously, if you want to talk to Postalytics, we are here and ready, and we're signing up folks every day on the service. And Nancy is available to talk about projects. She's a tremendous resource. Has been a chief creative officer for lots of companies and has been pulled in by Google and Adobe and consulting projects. And so she's a tremendous resource for any marketer. So we did have a few questions that were submitted in our pre-conference follow-up. So I'll start with one for Nancy. So Nancy, you talked about social proof in the webinar and how that can be used, but what are some examples of how you can actually do social proof in email and direct mail? The person who submitted the question said that they use social proof on landing pages all the time, but haven't really thought about using it in email and direct mail.
Sure, and that's true. I mean, the wonderful thing about social proof is you can use it on landing pages, email, direct mail. You can even use it as a salesperson face to face. But again, the idea about social proof is when people are uncertain of what to do, they look to others, particularly others like themselves, and they follow their lead. So what does that mean in terms of executing again social proof in a direct mail or an email? You want to say things like maybe you say. This is a particularly popular product, or maybe we want to say it's backed by popular demand, or maybe we want to say it's back in stock. All of those things would suggest, wow, it's sold out, or everyone else is buying it. Or maybe you want to say, tech marketers like you, or maybe you want to say your neighbors in Newton, makes it feel like, okay, it's people like me. Maybe you want to cite the number of people, 16,323 people have already signed up for, makes it sound like, oh, wow, there are a lot of people, who are doing this. Another great way to use social proof is to use a testimonial. And there are two things that can take a good testimonial and turn it into a great testimonial. The first is you want your testimonial giver to be as similar to your testimonial receiver or reader as possible. So if you're trying to convince CFOs, have a testimonial from a CFO. If you're trying to convince small business owners in New England, try to have a testimonial from a small business owner in New England. Because the closer the two are, the more believable and credible they are. And then the other thing is, if you can start where your prospect is, which is generally speaking a place of skepticism, and then move them along to the point where they think your product or service is wonderful, that's terrific. So, if you had a testimonial that said, I tried Postalytics and it was really good and I recommend it to anyone, that would be a really good testimonial, right? We'd be happy to have that. But if you had a testimonial that said, I had my doubts about whether, adding email to an automated stream would really work. And then I tried Postalytics and wow, am I ever convinced, you know, and someone reading that might start with, oh, that's exactly what I was wondering. Like, yeah, is it really worth it? You know, so starting where that skeptical prospect might be, and then moving them along can take a good testimonial and turn it into a great testimonial. So testimonials, you know, number of people who have already done something, the fact that something is popular or very often downloaded, you know, showing those old, you know, the thermometers where you're showing how many people have, you know, donated or purchased or added to or commented, show the number of likes, the number of shares, the number of retweets. All of these are, you know, great indicators of social proof. And you know, you can use them, as I said, in email and direct mail, on landing pages and social, even in face-to-face sales.
Excellent. That's great. I've got two other questions that were submitted. There's one for me. I'll get to do another one for you, Nancy, first. So in your opinion, Nancy, what are the distinctions and what are the appropriate times to use a letter format versus a postcard format in these workflows?
You know, that is a really good question. And so there's a short and a long answer to it. So the short answer is the rule of thumb is letter packages outperform self-mailers and postcards. So that's the short answer. You know, the rule of thumb: letter packages will outperform self-mailers and postcards because, you know, there's a little bit more involved. You know, a letter seems a little bit more serious. You know, you have to open it, and once you open it, you have a tendency to follow through and read it. The letter takes the place of the salesperson. It's a little bit more personal, a little bit, you know, more warm and emotional. So that's the rule. But like any rule, you know, you need to know the rules in order to know when to break them. So there are times when a postcard or a self-mailer makes a lot of sense. For example, maybe you want to send a little teaser to alert somebody to, you know, to a larger package that's going to be coming later. So a postcard could work really well. Or maybe you want to use a postcard as a kind of a chaser, you know, batting cleanup. You know, you've already sent several emails, or you've already sent a larger direct mail package, and this is kind of the follow-up or the last stitch attempt. Or you might be ranking your prospects or your customers, and as you get into the lower deciles, you know, you don't want to invest as much time or effort or budget against them, so they get a quick postcard as opposed to a more robust direct mail package. There are also certain verticals and industries that do particularly well with postcards. Retail is one of them. Letting people know about a sale, particularly in retail, but really in any vertical. If you've got like a quick sale coming up, maybe you just want to pop out a quick postcard that just celebrates that, you know, just lets people know, here's the deal. And it's so quick and easy that you absorb the information without having to do anything. Another time you can use postcard is if you're trying to be really official, just a simple, quick black and white one that just notifies someone that it's time to upgrade, or that, you know, something is expiring. You know, it seems serious and official, and people pay attention to it. So there are definitely times when postcards make sense. You know, when in doubt, the rule of thumb is go with the letter package, go with a full direct mail package. It has a tendency, you know, historically to outperform. But there are definitely times when you want to break that rule. And the other thing I might add is, you know, I'm quoting statistics here. These are, you know, kind of across the board ones. I was just reviewing a study the other day that had to do with millennials and direct mail. And you might think, they're not interested. They're all digital natives. But 77% of them pay attention to direct mail. 87% like getting it. I think it goes back, Dennis, to what you were saying about there just isn't that much mail coming into the mailbox these days. And a full 57% have made a purchase because of a piece of direct mail. So, you know, use a postcard, use a letter package, but, you know, use it because it actually does work.
That's really good stuff, and I'll just add, Nancy. You know, the first few hundred Postalytics campaigns that we've been watching and monitoring, we've seen a pretty significant difference in response rates from the larger postcard formats relative to the smaller format. We have a 4x6, and which is sort of the standard postcard. And we have some oversized postcards. We have 6x9, 6x11. And we've been seeing, you know, pretty consistently higher response rates with the larger format, particularly in campaigns where there's a really big, powerful image can be placed on that oversized postcard.
You know, I think you're absolutely right. You've got a few things going for you. You've got more real estate. to tell your story. The larger format is what's known as a clutter buster. It just stands out, and it just kind of dwarfs the other things in the mail. And then, imagery is so key. There's something known as picture superiority effect. And basically it means that we're drawn to pictures, we process them more easily, we remember them more. Pictures were around long before words were. And, so pictures pull us in. And there's tons and tons and tons of evidence that, that suggests that including visuals with your marketing messages will increase your response rate and your share rate and just the effectiveness. And so a larger postcard, as you point out, gives you more room for a nice, impactful image.
Great. And so last question that we had submitted was about events, and it was really kind of a Postalytics question. So, how can we sync up the delivery of event thank you notes from when attendees return from the event? And so, what we recommend is to take advantage of the scheduling feature that is built into Postalytics, so that you can build your campaigns, get everything ready to go, and have them sent approximately 5 business days prior to when you want them to arrive. And so if your goal is to have a letter or a big postcard sitting there waiting for somebody the day that they return from an event, well, those dates, you can actually do the scheduling out in advance so that, when somebody walks into their office, the first day that they get their mail delivered or the first day they return to their home, they can, see your oversized postcard or your letter that will remind them of, what it is that you spoke about at the conference or at the event, or relaying your key message again. And so you can use our scheduling feature to schedule out as many campaigns as you want in the future, exactly like you do with email. And so, it's a powerful way to make sure that your messages are being delivered in a timely way, and that the synchronization of messages that Nancy had laid out in the event workflow will line up the way that you want them to. So that's what we have for today. It's 45 minutes, which was our goal here. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We will send you a follow-up email with a link to the download page. And again, if you have any questions, you want to talk further with either us or Nancy or both of us, we'd be more than happy to talk to anybody and help you be successful in your campaigns when you're integrating direct mail and email. So thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Dennis.
And thank you, everybody, for attending, and hope you have a great day.